All right, let's get our Facebook friends up in here. And boom, boom. Welcome in, guys. It is 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time, Tuesday morning. It's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I'm Nick Kendell and joined by, as always, Scott Kennedy. Scott, good morning to you. How are you doing? How's the coffee?
Coffee's hot. I haven't tried it yet. So, like I said, I like to set your watch. See if you can tell when Scott's coffee starts kicking in.
Do you really save it for when we go live?
Kinda. Yeah, I actually like the caffeinated buzz you get, and you don't get that if you just immediately wake up and hit the coffee. It's almost like, okay, this is just helping me wake up. So if you wake up on your own and then hit the coffee afterwards, then you still get that rush. It takes 24 ounces to do it now, but but also it also keeps me from, snacking all day when you're working at home. So coffee actually acts as an appetite suppressant. So if I wait a little bit later in the day to have breakfast and have my coffee, I can make it later into the mid-morning afternoon before I eat lunch.
That makes sense. Well, I felt attacked when you said, hop out of bed and just immediately it helps you wake up. Right here, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time.
I'm not waking up. You wake up all banging. I don't want to be up. So
I am boots on the ground. Kind of alarm goes up. Whew, let's go. But yeah, let's welcome in everybody in the chat. Let's see. We got Ethan coming in. Good afternoon, gents in Broncos country. Ethan, are you a morning coffee person? Are you a morning and afternoon coffee person? Let us know. Luke writes in the house. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Speaking of coffee, the logo's there, the emojis. And also EJ saying, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Sunny Days is in the house saying it's going to be a good day. Talking more coffee. God, I'm excited about coffee today. Clee in the house saying Nick Petrie is now being mocked in the first. There's about 70 players right now that are being mocked from picks 20 to 30 right now. Guess what? Not all of them are going to go there.
Yeah, not even in the first, just in those 10 picks alone.
No, seriously. Yeah, then that's... I think it was Bucky Brooks and Daniel Jeremiah were discussing their first round grades in this class. And I think it was Brett Veach of the Chiefs saying they had 16 players on their board with first round grades this year, which is lower than a typical class. Typical class is closer to 18 to 22. So less top end talent, but they said they had a bunch of late 1 to 2 kind of got grades. Cause a lot of teams do like round 1 grade, 1/2. Early too, like are just weird different things. They use like an 8-point scale too. I don't understand all the mathematics actually, but Andrew Lampy coming in here. Speaking of math, supporting us saying morning. Hope everyone has a great Tuesday. Hope you do too, and Andrew. Hope good to see you, and hope you enjoy your little bit of Broncos draft talk this morning with us. But where was I getting at? Oh yeah, there's not as many first round grade players this year. There's a lot of day 2 talent though, guys who are day 2 grades.
I've said that since the Senior Bowl. Since I went down to the Senior Bowl, which is really when I first started getting a draft, I'm like, people talk about this being a weaker draft. No, it's not. Just because it's not the perceived difference makers at the top of the draft doesn't mean it's a weak draft. I think it's a very strong draft. It's a deep draft, especially where it counts in the trenches. The trenches in this draft are head and shoulders better than what we had last year between the edge rushers, the interior defensive linemen. I like the guard class a little bit better than last year. And I don't remember all the tackles. And the tackle class seemed to be decent. So maybe not quite as – the offensive line class was good last year. But as far as the defensive line class between the interior DL and the edge, I think this is significantly a deeper class.
And I will push back just a tad. I agree with you on the whole about the interior defensive line being better than last year because last year was horrific. I do think this year is still not that good for interior defensive line.
Oh, I didn't say it was good, but last year it was Christian Barmore and then
crickets.
Then what?
Yeah, crickets.
Yeah, and then this year you could have 6 to 8 guys go in the first couple rounds. I mean, first 3 rounds pretty easily. I can go Devontae Wyatt, Perrion Winfrey, Travis Jones, Jordan Davis. Last year I said Christian Barmore.
Yeah.
And he lasted till the second round.
Shockingly.
So it's considerably better than last year. Now, how that stacks up to like the past 10 years, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's considerably better this year than it was last year.
Yeah, I wonder if that's going to start to be a trend because I think on the whole, like compared to linebacker and interior offensive line, tackles even, the interior defensive line class just doesn't do that much for me after the top 6 guys. Now there are obviously some like kind of very specific body types that I'm interested in later. We talked about him yesterday, Atito, or maybe a couple days ago.
Tito
Atito,
Ogbonnia, yeah, I
really
really
like
like
him.
him. And before we get into it, Nick,
Yeah, let's do it.
I posted some video yesterday, and I was like, you know what? I might have been selling this guy short a little bit.
Okay.
So let me bring up the video I put together from the Senior Bowl, and it took just a little bit. I just did it this week. I'm like, if I don't have it up this week, it's gonna be too late.
I'm gonna say hello
But
to some more people while
Mr.
you.
Logan Hall.
Okay, now we're talking.
Logan Hall. I always like to start with this drill. Just get an idea how well they move. And that's Andrew Stuber, who had a bad week that he's going against from Michigan. This looks like maybe I don't remember who the Oklahoma guy was. And this is that's Cole Strange. Cole Strange had a hot and cold.
Yeah.
Let me hit again because Cole Strange is on the wrong end of a lot of these. But a nice first step. We already know, but 6'6", 280. There's Ogbonnia next to him.
Yeah.
That's Stuber again. Showed him his back, but still was able to spin around him. Nice little swim move inside. And he could play at 290 as a 4-3 tackle. I think he's probably going to be a jumbo end when all is said and done, though.
I mean, just for the Broncos country to put perspective, it is rare to see your lighter than 300-pound defensive tackles succeeding, but Draymond Jones plays about 285 at that.
Yeah, and in a 3-4 end, that works really well. So, yep. I think, excuse me, I was selling him a little short. He had a better week than I remembered.
He's a very interesting player, and you're talking about the interior defensive line. I think there are 6 guys right now I would take in the top 100, and he's one of them. He's one of the ones that I would categorize as that kind of player. So some other guys that I like later on that we've talked about some on here, but not crazy. Matthew Butler from Tennessee. He's kind of a day 3, early day 3 option. If the Broncos took him at 96, I guess I would get it. I don't love the value there, but he's one that intrigues me a bit. You have John Ridgeway from Arkansas, who's a little bit more of a nose tackle. Fedarian Mathis, who's also a little bit more of a nose tackle. I'm not very big on Neil Farrell, just with a tiny arm length for being a nose tackle, not for me. And I think Thomas Booker is being slept on a little bit as well from Stanford. He's a little bit of a penetrator, some versatility up there. He did a lot for Stanford, and people, rave about his intelligence. So Thomas Booker, another name to keep an eye on. And last one I wanted to say here real quick, Matt Hennison from Wisconsin wasn't invited to the combine, but posted freaky numbers at Wisconsin's pro day. Very good athlete, and Wisconsin's defense is just chock full of good players. It really makes me upset because they always beat the absolute heck out of my Hawkeyes up front. Wade Rhea coming in here saying, what are your guys' thoughts? Oh my God, here's Thomas Booker. Literally just talking about him. Good job, Scott, being timely. I like Thomas Booker. He's a little bit tweenery, but I think he's got a future as a solid rotational piece on the defensive line. And you're talking about probably mid-day 3, I would say probably is where you're looking at him. I know he's been a back-to-back team captain. He's got a pretty good frame with a 33-inch arm length, just at 300 pounds. Wish he was a little bit stronger at the point of attack and could anchor. That's something that's really important in today's NFL when you're seeing gap and a half guys who can kind of plant their butts and not go anywhere. I don't see that with Booker. He needs to be more shooting upfield. But overall, he's a pretty good player. So I wouldn't take him until, day 3, but he's got a chance to be rotational. Also a little bit older, going to be 23 years old this year. But that's true for most of this class, the older class.
Yeah, and Tito Ogbonnia is one of my guys. I do really like him. He's got such force that I don't know why he's being slept on so much. And we'll see again what a mock draft simulator says and what actually happens on draft day are two very different things. I mean, he could sneak up into the second or third. I think he's got that type of ability. I honestly do. See Patrick Havener coming in. So Russell Wilson as a Walter Payton Man of the Year doesn't get enough praise. Probably not, because I didn't know that. So so it probably doesn't get talked about enough, unfortunately. And I like to say we can blame ourselves for this based on what we pay attention to and what we click on and everything. The bad news sells. The bad news gets more praise than the good news. But thanks for bringing this to our attention because to my attention, at least, and everybody else's attention, if you didn't know, because it doesn't get enough praise, and it should. So thank you very much, and thank you for the stars, Patrick.
Very small potatoes here, but I'm curious. I think every team can only nominate one person to be their Walter Payton Man of the Year, and Justin Simmons, I think, has been 3 years in a row for the Broncos. Now you got Russell Wilson. Can you be nominated and win again? Like, is that going to create some inner tension? Because I know that winning the Walter Payton Man of the Year is like a big goal for Justin Simmons, actually.
I think Russell Wilson as a 33-year-old quarterback, and did he win it, the overall?
He won
I'm
it.
guessing that's
Yep,
what that's
he has the patch on his jersey. Like, you can see
okay, that's awesome.
Yep.
That's really cool. He would be just fine with passing the baton to a younger guy. I mean, I think he would be absolutely over the moon for Justin Simmons if Justin Simmons won it this year.
I hope so. I would hope so. Russell Wilson is very much about his brand. Obviously, that's a big deal for him.
Part of your brand is being a good supporter of younger teammates too.
That's true, but it's also, two-time Walter Payton Man of the Year award winner helps the brand too. So I think you're right. Yeah, he's got one. Yeah, absolutely. Ashton coming in here, Buenos Dias. Good to see you, Ashton. We also got Rob coming in saying good morning, Nick and Scott. Always my favorite MHH team. Rob, that's too kind of you. There's a lot of good options for MHH team. Probably seeing my mug on so many shows is not for every single person, but we appreciate everybody who supports us at all. And if you like building the Broncos the best, go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and review and say Nick and Scott are killing it. We'd appreciate that. Also, Rob goes on and says, think Peyton could do a move like Belichick did with the Texans for more 2023 capital? Yes. Chad hasn't published it yet, but I did an article where the main goal of the 2022 draft class needs to be accumulating 2023 draft capital, because right now the Broncos only have their own 3rd round pick, their own 4th round pick, their own 5th round pick, and the Minnesota Vikings 7th round pick. That is a minuscule amount of capital. And next year, the Broncos projected to have only $12 million in cap space, 22nd in the league, and Russell Wilson getting a contract, and Draymond Jones, and Bradley Chubb, and Dalton Reisner all set to be free agents. Things can get a little bit sketchy pretty quick. And the best way to fill out a roster when you don't have a lot of space is, you guys guessed it, rookie cost-controlled contracts out of the draft. So, yes, do need to get more 2023 capital. I'd be shocked if the Broncos walked away with less than they have right now after the conclusion of the 2022 draft.
Yeah, we talk about you don't necessarily want to have 9 guys on a team like this make the draft, because where are you going to find space for them? You can stash them on the practice squad and whatnot, but it makes sense to try and space those out across 2 years. Your cheaper guys that you can have for depth or special teams or whatnot, because you're going to need them. You are going to need them over the course, and maybe not this year, but next year and the year after for sure. So moving back into 2023 and doing something along those lines makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, and talking about that just a little bit more, James Palmer over on NFL Network, who's now a Denver Bronco insider, and I've been told specifically that if you want to get in the mind of George Payton, James Palmer's the guy to listen to. So a little bit, my ears perk up when he says anything. And he's been talking about the Broncos maybe moving up in the 2nd round for an offensive tackle, or sitting there, maybe moving up for an edge as well, but sitting there at 64, 75, 96 and targeting cornerback and edge rusher. And those are very much depth pieces. And those are also pieces where there's not a direct path to starting the season, but those become massive, massive needs in 2023. So rather than going into next year where you don't have the capital to fill those needs, you want to get yourself a player that can be rotational this season, depth piece that can project to be filling in as a starter in 2023. You want to make sure that's taken care of before it's a problem, especially at those positions, because it's so hard to find quality players at those positions. And without your 1st and 2nd round pick next year and really no salary cap, it's going to have to be who you can come away with this year, or getting lucky, or just understanding that you're going to be a little weaker at those spots. So definitely stuff to think about. I do really like that Peyton is thinking that way, rather than, people screaming about tight end or off-ball linebacker. Those not as valuable as those other positions, and finding long-term starters there.
Jason Walton comes in. Jason, that feels like a little bit of a newer name for me. He says, thoughts on Master Teague as a late-round prospect?
I think he's an athlete, no doubt about it. The issue is that Ohio State brought in a 5-star super god recruit this year in Henderson, and Teague kind of fell to the wayside because of that. He's still going to be, I think, an okay rotational back. You might get him 6th or 7th round because he does have some athleticism. I think he has a couple of weight room records at Ohio State as well, but he's not the running back that Davion Henderson
I remember him. I haven't done a ton of recruiting lately, but I did several like top 25 guys a couple of years ago, and I did him 3 years ago. I was like, oh my God. They're like, yeah, Ohio State's not taking a running back this year because they want him next year. So yeah, Henderson's pretty good. He's a pretty good player.
Yeah, he is a really good player, man. Oh, it's got 2024 draft class with running back. There are 2 of them in the Big Ten that are just absolute gods. The closest thing I've ever seen to Derrick Henry is coming out of Wisconsin. He's still got 2 years at Wisconsin in Braylon Allen. Have you seen Braylon Allen yet, Scott? I know you're not as much of the college psychopath that I am, especially Big Ten.
Okay. I used to be. That's what's crazy. I'm not. It's just kind of gone by the wayside a little bit as I've gotten older. I mean, I quit a job over going to a football game one time. So,
well, Braylon Allen is unbelievable. God, it's really upsetting to watch him run because he just, he's like 6 foot, 240 pounds. He was like 18 years old or 17 years old last year. And if he gets to the second level, he's got breakaway speed for being just an absolute unit. He's so good. DWI guy, speaking of so good, Ethan coming in saying, love the quote from Hackett on Russell Wilson after practice.
All threes too.
Yeah, all threes. Thank you so much, Ethan. I don't know what that translates to in American dollars, but that's very helpful for us regardless. I know there's a little bit, it's even better than what it appears on the surface. So what did Hackett say? He said, just out there at the end, he was like, wait, we're done. Can we do more? And you're like, man, I would love to, but we've got to tone it down. Baby steps. He's awesome. It's kind of like when you have a puppy, you got to, you don't want to overwalk it early on. It's like, okay, what is it? 5 minutes of walking per month of age. Just hold it back. I know you want to go all day, but we need to just dial it back a little bit so we're better later on.
Yeah, my parents have a puppy, and I'm like, all right, I'll bring over my daughter. I'm like, she'll wear that puppy's ass out. I promise you that. I don't know if she'd wear out Russell Wilson, though. And yeah, it seems like a really long may it stay this way. We're in the honeymoon period, and it can go south quickly. And you look back, and you're like, remember how hokey that was? We should have known then. Hopefully it stays this way. I have a good feeling that it will, because while Nathaniel Hackett isn't necessarily a proven commodity, Russell Wilson is.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson is a proven commodity. And if your quarterback's happy, it's happy wife, happy life. If your quarterback's happy and playing well, and you've already got the pieces around him on your defense, skill players, it should be a good fit. So far, the early returns with Broncos country are fantastic. And speaking of fantastic, Ethan, we love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ethan. Dave Glassman with support here with the hearts. Thank you so much, Dave. We also got Bama X in the house. Dave sending more hearts here. We got CC's in the house. Good to see you, CC. I always love hearing from CC. Good commenter. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
No, that's okay. I wanted to hit this question. Robert Caslow says, what's up, Bronco Maniacs? Would you rather have DeMarvin Leal or Travis Jones at 64? That one's easy for me.
Yeah, that's a underhand, slow pitch, beer league softball kind of question. So keep giving us the easy ones. DeMarvin Leal was really hyped up, good recruit, but this last year he kind of found himself being very tweenery and very hot and cold. Didn't have a great season. Travis Jones, that power, that combination of get off, the length, it plays no matter what scheme you are. He's a good enough athlete where even if you're a penetrating style of defense, he can get in the backfield and do that. So it's easily Travis Jones. If Travis Jones falls to 50, I'm working the phones because I talked about it earlier. Maybe we're starting to see a trend where these interior defensive line bodies are not as plentiful as they've been. I really feel like it's been trending down, and to get somebody that is versatile and can allow you to play wider boxes because they are that big and long in Travis Jones, sign me up.
Yeah, he could play 4-3 defensive tackle. I firmly believe that. Him and Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis isn't necessarily just a run stopper nose guard. He proved that. The only makes you think that is you're in disbelief that someone that size can move like that. You're like, oh, he's got to be a nose guard. Look how big he is. No.
Do you think he can play 5 technique?
305-pound guys.
Yeah. Do you think he is a good enough athlete where he can play 3-4 defensive end? Because there's some guys like that. Yeah.
If you wanted to go jumbo, for sure, you line him up over there. Put Purcell in there and Jordan Davis next to him. Good luck running left. If you put him on whichever side you run on, good luck.
Yep. It reminds me of Akeem Hicks. Akeem Hicks is a 6'6", 330-pound 5 technique, 4 technique. And he played next to Eddie Goldman at nose. And if the Broncos wanted to go, oh, you signed DJ Jones, he's going to play nose. Where would you play Travis Jones? Next to him. We're going to be okay. You're going to figure it out.
Michaela Israel with a question. Do you think we'll sign Lindsay to a 1-year deal? No, I don't. Whatever is up with Philip Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong here, Nick, but I think he's been cut basically 3 times in the last 13 months.
I don't know if he's been
for the most part. Cut might be a strong word.
Yeah.
Denver Broncos decided not to renew him. Houston Texans signed him to a decent sized contract and waived him mid-season.
Yeah.
He went to the Dolphins. They didn't renew him either. That's 3 teams that have said no on Philip Lindsay in the last year.
Yeah.
I'm saying no again.
The thing about Philip Lindsay is great story, good kid. He is pretty much the opposite of where running backs are going right now in today's NFL. And obviously different body types, different skill sets. If you're good enough, you can get out there. But the thing about Philip Lindsay is that because of his small stature, he's never going to be a plus player as a blocker or even an average player. He just gets engulfed by guys. And because he's also not a very good player being flexed out and a natural receiver in space. So if he's in there, it's a running play. And you know that he's also not going to be used as a pass protector. So you can change your pressure packages to attack him. He's also very much it's kind of a weird type. I think he's much better in an under center offense where he can follow a fullback up the A or B gap. And that's becoming less prevalent in today's NFL. And because of that size also, he's not really going to be breaking tackles and punishing teams for playing wider boxes. So the style of running back he is I don't think very conducive to where the game is going right now. If he wanted to come back and compete for a spot, very cheap veteran minimum 1-year deal and the back end of the roster, then okay, we can have a conversation. But again, it's unfortunate. And the other thing that's unfortunate is he came into the league older. He had a lot of carries at Colorado as well. So it's a lot of whammies for the running back position, a lot of buzzwords, but it's the reality.
Yeah, and Michaela follows up, says it's hard to judge based on the O-line he's been playing behind. Houston was bad. Miami wasn't good.
Miami's worse.
Denver Broncos gave up on him or dismissed. But I was root for the hometown kid. Yeah, absolutely you should. And you root for a guy that came in as an undrafted free agent and ran for back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He's a good story. You want him to succeed. And he has. He has succeeded. He may have also played his way over-marketed himself to a certain extent where he's making this much money, and if he wants to be back in the league, he's going to have to take a lot less than that. And he's got time. He's got time to figure that out. But right now, he's a veteran league minimum type, not a 7-figure contract type.
Yeah, running backs, unfortunately, in today's NFL, you lease them. You don't own them. And then after they're done, you let them go after that rookie contract. That's probably the path to go down. It's a cold, harsh reality, but it's where we are. And maybe we'll see a little bit of a renaissance of the running back position, a tad, with how teams are playing defenses right now. There's more space to be had.
It's all cyclical. It is. It gets bigger, then it gets smaller, then it gets bigger, then it gets smaller and fast, and then it gets big. Nick, you've heard me say this a zillion times. What never goes out of vogue, big and fast.
Yep. And long. Long is very much in right now. But
Lawrence, appreciate you coming in with the start. He says, "Good morning, Broncos country," and I kind of stepped on Jacob. Just because he's the silent one doesn't mean I need to be the silent one. So thank you again for the stars and the continued support. You're a big part of our show, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We appreciate you as well. Also got Jeremy Bales. Good morning, fellas. Good to see you. Vin in the house. Good morning, y'all. Jeremy Sean. Great to see you, Jeremy Sean. Mandango, hungry for Broncos for breakfast, my boys in Broncos country. Also, Mark Schrader coming in with support.
With big stars. Now, do you have a small cup? Because if I drink 2 of these, that's 2 cups. This is only like 16 ounces.
I do have the small cup, but I also bring my thermos.
Well, they call a cup of coffee like 4 ounces. I'm like, that's not a cup of coffee.
That's espresso.
That's a half a cup of a cup.
Yeah.
A cup of coffee is 16 minimum, as far as I'm concerned.
I would say 12. But
12, yeah, I can live with that. But when they start like a coffee cup is like a tea saucer or something.
Yeah.
You go to Europe and they give you those little shot things. It's like that's a thumbnail. I need a coffee. Give me 6 of those, please. I need to find.
I'm from America. You ever heard of it?
Can I get the American size, please? I'm here 2 hours before everybody, and I'm not smoking. I'm obviously American. Get me the big cup.
Oh, man, I need to get back to Europe. Thank you so much, Mark. Good to see you. Also, shout out to our Mile High Huddle ladies saying good morning to Carolina Lynn's. Dom in the house. Good to see you, Dom. Rocking. I think that might be Champ Bailey in his picture there. God, Champ was so good. Good morning, Nick
Was
Scott
Champ
and
a 2-4?
Yes, he was. Yep.
Okay.
It's got to be Champ. Sacrilegious. They gave Adam Pac-Man Jones number 24 when no other player had worn it after Champ Bailey. And like, oh, we'll give it to Pac-Man Jones. God, what are we doing? Dom is coming in saying, coffee's brewing, boys. Have a great day, gentlemen. Well, thank you for joining us. Falling Sloth's also in the house. Howdy, Broncos country. Getting into work late today, so I'm excited to catch the show live. Good to catch you live. Michael Kerr, morning all. Let's go Broncos. Timbo Slice is up here. What's up, fellas? What's up with you, Timbo? Greg Smith's in the house. Great to see you, Tim. Greg, aloha, as we like to say. Eddie Fritos also. Frutos saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. What's up, Broncos country? What did you guys think of Russell Wilson's press conference? Let's ride. This is going to be... Maybe this isn't a hot take, I don't think, but I'm not putting much. Russell Wilson always says and does the right thing. He's very aware of his public image. And I think him and Sierra, all about that, not all about it, but branding and how the public perceives them is very valuable to them. So what did I think of it? I think it's great. And I keep rubbing my eyes like, oh my God, is that Russell Wilson in a Broncos jersey? Okay, it still is. Like, I'm not dreaming it. I'm not hallucinating. But as far as like what he says exactly, he's going to hype his guys up. He's going to always say and do the right things from that lens. So because of that, I'm not putting much weight in it at all.
Ethan says, going back, this is coffee talk with Nick and Scott. Ethan says they say Americans diluted coffee. I always heard the Germans used to say the Americans have two types of water. One's yellow, they call it beer, and one's black, and they call it coffee. Mm-hmm. So I can verify the beer one. That was for sure. And the coffee, yeah, it probably is. But, I like a big cup of coffee. I don't want just one quick shot.
Yeah, and the Germans too.
Pills, caffeine pills for that, for goodness sakes. You want to get into our topic, Nick, a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, the Germans also. I have a buddy who's from Munich, and he always gives Americans a hard time because we're cheaters with our beer as well. We're obsessed with IPAs and hops, and I can vouch for that.
Well, that's better than what it was. At least now we're talking about decent beer. What I call cheaters is the Americans have been brainwashed to thinking that cold beer is good beer. No, it's not. The colder it is, the more it kills your taste buds, the less you can taste. Yep. These cheap beer manufacturers, and I haven't had a drink in 25 years, and I'm still passionate about cheating the American public out of decent tasting refreshment.
Yeah.
It's ice cold because it kills your taste buds. If it actually warms up and you taste it, you realize, man, this stuff tastes like crap. Yeah, it does. It's cheaply made crappy beer.
Well, there's a little bit of a funny way. Anybody who knows anything about beer can be like, oh yeah, that's true. Americans, every microbrew that's opening up around you has like 10,000 IPAs, but no Pilsners. It's much easier to make an IPA because the balance of the hops and everything, you don't have to be as precise and as talented as a brewer to make an IPA compared to a Pilsner. And I would much rather have an IPA. I love the hops. But there is something to be said about the Germans and perfecting the Pilsner because it is significantly more precise, tedious to make.
I was the island guy. I like the English and Irish ales, the big thick ones, and the stouts and that type of stuff. So
yeah.
Anyway,
and let's say hello to some more people here real quick, just because we don't want to leave anybody behind. Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Kayleon Green, yo, what's up, guys? Salvi Nation, good morning, Nick and Scott. Always like to say hi to Kathy as well. Hello, Nick and Scott. I'm a little late because I came home from a plane watching. Airbus and 3 Euroflights were cruising the sky over my town for at least 3 hours straight. Okay, cool. I like John Ridgeway as a nose tackle. Where is he about to be picked? What do you think about John Ridgeway, Scott?
I like him. I think, he's been moved down on the PFF board almost to like undraftable.
Wow.
And he was a solid nose guard option at the Senior Bowl at 330 pounds. So I think he is a good plug-in reserve body to have. And if you can get him 5th or later, I think he would help your team. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. And I think he'd probably go. I probably wouldn't touch him until. I feel like he's been on the board for us at like round 4 a lot, and there's always better options there that I prefer. So if he falls to round 5, yes, I'm interested.
Yeah,
but
5.
Round 4, with where the Broncos pick it right now, which is early round 4, I don't really value it as much. But he's a good player, and you talked about it yesterday. Mike Purcell's not on a big contract. He's been injured the last 2 seasons. I could definitely see the Broncos looking to bring in more of a nose tackle type, unless the plan there is DJ Jones. But With DJ Jones coming in, I'm really curious about his usage. I know they mentioned 0-1 technique with him, but he's just not your prototype nose because of the length
It
issues.
just could mean, maybe not on 1st and 10. As
Yep.
soon as you get into anything, a passing situation, which is 3/4 of the plays or passes, then you can move him inside. Then he could be a 0 or 1 inside guy for sure at that point. I can see that happening for sure. Again, he is a very similar player to Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett played 3-4 end and wasn't as effective, but I don't put that on him so much because he had nobody around him. But he is a much better 4-3 defensive tackle, which you slide him inside in passing situations for sure, which you're going to be in passing situations a lot.
Yep, and that's one of the reasons Peyton raved about waves of edge rushers, waves of pass rushers, which the Broncos, I know that Malik Reed has a lot of sacks, but if he was valued, he wouldn't be here anymore, or they would have not put the original round tender on an undrafted free agent. James Hyatt, $2 coming in over on YouTube. Thank you so much, James. Good to see you. It's draft week, no first rounder, but we got RW3. Hell yeah, baby. That's good to see. Also love to shout out to Dylan Von Arks. Good morning, Broncos country. And
when 9 comes up, just say, and now on the clock, Denver Broncos, they select quarterback, Russell Wilson. You'll be like, that sounds nice.
It does sound nice. And we're talking coffee sizes. We also got Kenneth coming in saying, good morning. How many players did Shermer waste with his system and poor decisions? I'm saying Locke, Fant, and Lindsay for sure. I mean, did Lindsay, I don't want to dump on Lindsay because we already kind of talked about it, but did Lindsay waste his value, or did just the kind of way the NFL is going right now with his skill set? I mean, I don't know if he's been wasted. I will say that the offense was probably too mentally demanding for where Drew Lock was at as a quarterback. He needed a much more simplified Kyle Shanahan half-field read kind of things. So, yeah, probably a little bit too, I don't know, wasting, but wasn't the best for Lock.
If Drew Lock becomes something, we'll say that he never did anything. Otherwise, he just might not have been very good. It's
and most guys drafted, quarterbacks especially, drafted outside of the top 10 aren't very good. Is just the reality of it. There's only been, I think, 4 non-first round quarterbacks drafted in the last decade that have gone on to do very much of anything in the NFL. And one of those is like Jimmy G.
I don't know that Lindsay was wasted too, because you ended up getting 2,000 yards out of the running back position last year, didn't you? It was like it was about 1,600 in combined rushing totals.
Yeah,
and then receiving yards. So he was supplanted. He wasn't wasted. He was moved on. Now, you want to talk to me about Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy? I'm all ears.
Yeah,
I am. I'm all ears.
And Fant also was pretty high up in targets. I think he was top 5 in targets.
He set career numbers last year. It was for receptions and yards. His average per was down because he's running stop routes and button hooks instead of hitting him in stride and letting 260 pounds of momentum go forward. But we have talked about that before. But I think if we're talking the big skill in quarterback, Locke just might not have been good enough. Lindsay got upgraded, and Fant was used, but probably used incorrectly. So we'll see how those guys do in Seattle, and then we'll have a better answer.
Fant, man, he just needs to make a guy miss. I think he was bottom 10 in the NFL last year in yards after catch over expected, given where he caught the ball, where players were around him, and what he did. I think he had 1 broken tackle last year, which for his size and how many opportunities he had, shouldn't have been the case. Dealing with an injury, dealing with the sudden passing of his mother. I get it. But Perry West coming in $5 saying, good morning, guys. What do you guys think about cornerback Joshua Williams from Fayetteville State? He was down at the Senior Bowl, Scott, if I'm not mistaken.
If he was, I don't remember him doing much. 6'3", 195 pounds, 4.53 in the 40, so good size, good athleticism. After that, I don't know.
Yeah, the 32 and 7/8 arm lengths. He's a very good athlete. Had a lot of ball production at Fayetteville State, if I remember as well. Maybe at pick 96, if you're looking for somebody with some press upside, that's the area that I'm looking for him. I like him better than everybody loves Zion McCollum, but I like the length Joshua Williams has better than Zion McCollum, also better competition. He's a little bit herky-jerky with some of his movements, but you kind of get that with a nearly 6'3" cornerback. But overall, a pretty good player. He's pretty darn good as far as the pressability, the physicality, et cetera, et cetera. Needs to trust his technique a little bit more because what I saw from him, he's a little bit handsy. And if I recall correctly, I was listening to some people talk about cornerbacks, and they said that he was one of the highest consistently measured players at the Senior Bowl as far as GPS speed. So definitely there's some tools there and some athleticism. Maybe at 96, I'm thinking more so if you don't get two cornerbacks. Heck, I'm fine doubling up there, as you guys probably saw from my mock draft. If you get another cornerback there at 115, 116, he's one of the guys to keep in mind.
And appreciate the super on that one, Perry.
Yeah, a couple more here. Benjamin.
Oh, sorry.
Let me show Benjamin real quick because I've tried to show him a few times.
Okay, go ahead.
Like to show Ben. Good morning, fellas. Go Broncos and happy Taco Tuesday. Cheers. Good to see you.
And Trevor asks, he says, do you think Russ has any input in the draft with Peyton? If he does have input, who do you think he likes in the draft? I have no idea who he likes in the draft, but he does have input. George Peyton said in the whatever you want to call it, pre-OTA press conference, he was asked about it. And he says, yeah, he's a resource. He's a rat. He's a film rat. He's a football rat. And he's always watching. So, there's only so many hours in a day, so you might just go by and say, Russ, who are you watching tonight? He's like, oh, I went to NC State and I went to Wisconsin. I'm going to plug in the NC State Coastal Carolina game. All right, well, tell me what you see. So sure. So does he have input? He does. Peyton said as much. And you're smart. One, you're keeping him involved in the process. Two, you take in as much information as you can, and then you start remembering what people say and if they have any credibility. Everybody comes with you. Who's going to become a good resource that you can lean on when they come and talk to you? Hey, Scott, yeah, I remember the last time you came and talked to me. That guy couldn't play a lick. Couldn't play dead in a cowboy movie in one ear out the other. But if someone says, hey, you need to watch this guy, and the last two guys he told me about hit, my ears are going to go, okay, I need to watch this guy. Nick said, watch this guy, and Nick's been right. The last three times he's told me that, I'm going to listen. So as a relatively new general manager, George Peyton is listening to everybody. He's got his core guys already, but he listens to everybody, especially as a new quarterback.
Yeah, that's we talked about it yesterday. Buy-in from your teams and somebody like Russell Wilson, if he feels like he's a part of the decision-making process, which he apparently didn't feel that way in Seattle, then you're going to have more buy-in from him. He's going to feel like there's onus on him to perform and these guys around him to be better as well because he's part of the decision-making process. So really important there. Biggie Bronco coming in saying, oop, go ahead. We'll do this one first. Where does Champ
again?
Yeah, you did. It's okay. I'm going to flash Biggie real quick, then I'll scroll down. Good morning. Woo! No, sorry. Don't want to flash him too much. Good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Let's go. Good to see you, Big E. Hope you're doing well. We also got Kenneth coming in here. Where does Champ rank on cornerbacks all time? Oh, man. It's so hard to say because the game has changed so dramatically over time. It's like even like talking quarterbacks, like we probably should be talking about Otto Graham and Johnny Unitas, but the game was completely different back then to what Dan Marino did compared to what Peyton's doing, compared to what even Patrick Mahomes is doing now. The game's evolved. You've seen these jumps and what's been demanded and what can be done has changed. So Champ, I think if you wanted to put him at number one, honest to God, I would not fight you because of the overall talent that he had. He was never on that amazing of teams. And still just shut down one side of the field. Athletic specimen, good tackler, huge, good coverage player. There's also arguments for like Charles Woodson. Obviously, Daryl Revis's peak season was as good as anybody
I've ever seen. Go the other one before you say Charles to me.
And there's also Deion Sanders, of course.
Rod Woodson.
And Rod Woodson, yes. I know you're not a big Charles Woodson
guy. Woodson goes ahead of Charles Woodson. Deion, I think, is the best pure cover guy. If they were doing GPS stuff then, fastest player I've ever seen on a football field. Just unbelievable. Not the complete corner that some of these other guys were. And Nick's a little too young to remember this guy, but Daryl Green is a player that if you look him up, I bet he's got a dozen Pro Bowls. He played a long time with the Redskins, won the fastest man competitions when they used to do those at like 35 years old. So Daryl Green was a freak of nature. He would be in that conversation with me. I thought of Revis also. I thought of Woodson, Deion. And then after that, they start getting, a little bit before me. Anybody before, before the mid 80s becomes a little bit different for me.
Yeah, and just a few more names here. Looking it up, like, oh yeah, I recognize this name. Didn't watch him, but I recognize the name. Mel Blount playing for the
Yeah,
Steel
he was a
Curtain.
Steelers guy, and
Yep.
he was part of those, one for the thumb. I think he was part of those four Super Bowl teams. Really good player, and with a name like Mel Blount, he played like he sounded with the Steelers. But he was one of those '70s guys that I mentioned before. That who fits into that group. I couldn't comment on them like I could. Daryl Green was the first of the big name guys for me.
Yep, and one more here from the 50s, Dick Night Train Lane.
Yeah, I was going to say Night Train. I think when he ram or something like that, but he set like interception records that would stand today. That, when they only threw the ball, 10 times a game and he has 15 interceptions. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lewis Wright shout out as well from Colin Wood here. Lewis Wright was a damn good player, and good to see you, Colin. Let's get into the conversation today. It's Mel Blount. Okay, excuse me, Holy Diver, Mel Blount. So let's get into it. We want to talk about the Broncos CAVOE, which is an acronym for, let me see, I have it right here, career approximate value over expected. And Scott, you found this and sent it to me, so I'm going to give you the floor on this one to explain it so I can drink some coffee.
They went through, if you go and look on Pro Football Reference, there's always like an average value score. So that what they tried to do was approximate that and then use, and this was an ESPN article, and then use that to talk about approximate value over expected. My problem with the over expected means you weren't getting you couldn't hit on your first round picks, basically. They could only hurt you because a first round pick is expected to be a good player. Well, they aren't always good players. So if you hit, you should get points for them. So when you're looking at these scores, a first round, all the lowest guys were second round picks for the most part, and all the highest guys were later round picks. Well, again, I was looking at it with the Indianapolis Colts, and you get 0 points for Andrew Luck. Well, Andrew Luck was 55-30 as a starting quarterback. I know he was number 1 overall, but he hit. Not all of those guys hit. So with that said, the Broncos finished 23rd on finding value over the last 10 years when they compiled all of these scores. So when you think of the Broncos drafts, Nick, over the last decade, would you think, in your head, they drafted better or worse than their counterparts?
I mean, we can look at how the team has been. I know they haven't had a quarterback, but overall, we kind of saw the team bottom out and hollowed out a bit. And a lot of the value that the Broncos had actually was undrafted free agents on a few of them, and draft or signings as well. And I don't think they included undrafted free agents in this approximate value calculation. So I would say I would have guessed about right below average, like a C- range.
Which is where they are, which is Denver Broncos. But if you go back and you look at the highest as far as finding value, which for the way this is set up, it's skewed very heavily towards if you got a player in the later rounds. If you did, then you got a pretty good score. The highest rated guy for finding value was linebacker Danny
Trevathan.
I was going to call it Treviathon, but there's no extra I in there. Was 40 points as a 6th-round pick, and the lowest was Shane Ray, defensive end, taken in it was actually Paxton Lynch taken in the first.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Those two were the 2 lowest. So Paxton Lynch was considered the worst value pick of the last 10 years for the Denver Broncos. That in itself is a story, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because you got so little out of him, but that's kind of I've actually softened a tad on the Paxton Lynch bust a few as time has passed, because you got to take swings at the quarterback, and if they flame out, at least it's better than piddling yourself in mediocrity for years. Where should we pay him? Should we not pay him? The last 5 years, then have flushed down the toilet. The Blake Bortles of the worlds, if you will. So that's, at least you have some directionality.
Nick, you're basically saying he was so bad that we were able to move on from him quickly, so he didn't hurt us so bad, so therefore he wasn't as big a bust.
No, he was still a big bust. He was still a big bust. He was still
not what a bust is. This guy was terrible. He was so terrible. He was such a bust.
Yeah,
that we were smart and moved on pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it. I'm so glad we're out of the quarterback conversations, but swing for the damn fences. And I'd rather strike out or hit a home run than hit a base on balls, because then you are in trouble and just that's not where you want to be, especially with all these superhero quarterbacks
Ironically,
right now.
the 2019 draft got a positive score, not by much, but a positive score. And the number one player of over expected was Noah Fant.
Mm-hmm.
So now I look at these scores and I wonder a little bit of it because I looked at the Falcons, and 3 years ago, the draft, the number one guy for value was Caleb McGarry, and the worst one was Chris Lindstrom. Caleb McGarry is a swinging gate at right tackle, and Chris Lindstrom is a Pro Bowler right guard. I'm like, I think you guys got those confused. So, Noah Fant, but could you make an argument that Noah Fant was the best value pick of that draft? And the worst for that draft, 6th rounder, Juwan Winfrey, wide receiver. Now, what were you expecting?
Yeah.
What could be your positive, negative? Did he make a? I mean, did he take a cheap shot at your quarterback?
He did nothing.
Special teams. What did he do to hurt you so bad?
He's got, what is the grade here? -2. I'm guessing your average 6th rounder is 2, and Juwan Winfrey has a big old 0. So that's why he's at the -2. Because he's done nothing. And I think he's done a little bit actually with the Eagles, maybe, but not very much value. This is actually surprising to me, though, to see Noah Fant be number 1 in 2019 because he was a first-round pick, and because I think that, I guess we'll see it here in a few years, but just following the contracts, Draymond Jones is going to get a bigger contract than Noah Fant. He just is. More valuable player. He's a pass rusher. Its tight ends are not super paid right now. So I would imagine that and this is also maybe the approximate value. I have an issue with them of their calculating value for interior defensive line, because Danny Trevathan was really good, but you had 5th round pick that year, Malik Jackson, who did not play as long as Danny Trevathan, but his peak and what he brings to the table at his peak was more valuable than what Danny Trevathan does. So that's my take on it, at least.
And as Kenneth comes in, he says Trevor Simeon wasn't a Pro Bowler, but he outplayed a 7th round pick. And he was. Trevor Simeon in the 2015 draft got the highest score contributing for this CAVOE formula of 14 points as a 7th round pick. When I mentioned that Shane Ray was the worst on that one. Some other players of note, Zach Dysert. And the worst draft of 2000 of this last 10 years, according to this, was 2013 with a -60. So you had your number one player was actually in the negatives because he didn't hurt you as bad as everybody else, and Zach Dysert. And then running back Monty Ball was a -15.6, was a 2nd rounder. Where was Monty Ball from? There was someone
Wisconsin.
like that from Macon, Georgia, that set a bunch of records. That couldn't be the same kid. He wouldn't have gone up to Wisconsin.
No, he's a Wisconsin kid. Monty Ball was with the Broncos there for a bit. Actually follows me on Twitter. Shout out to Monty Ball.
Timberland, Missouri. Born in Wentzville, Missouri.
He went to Wisconsin, was really good there. Flamed out in the NFL. A lot of carries at Wisconsin. Battled alcoholism. I think is now sober and went back to Wisconsin to get his degree, and now seems to be thriving in life. So shout out to Monty Ball. Sometimes these are people, and they have struggles just like any other person. And he's doing pretty well right now. So shout out to Monty Ball. And if you're listening, Monty, I hope you're doing well.
Well, that's the thing about addicts. They're obsessive, and if you can get obsessive about the right things in life, you can actually, be really good at things. 2018 inside linebacker Josie Jewell, 5 points as a 4th round pick, and guard Sam Jones was a -. Lloyd Cushenberry as a 3rd round pick is actually your number 1 from the 2020 draft.
Yeah.
And wide receiver KJ Hamler right now is your biggest negative. And that's understandable. It speaks a little bit about your 2020 draft when, you're ready to move on from your number 1 over expected. And, and then your worst right now is injury related for sure.
Yeah, and Michael Ojemudia also not been valued there because of injury as well. So this is an interesting thing. And I think you talked about the value there. I think it is important to add it's over expected because nobody has accumulated negative value. But
let's put a little silver bow on this, and then we can move on, Nick. I looked up, I was like, well, who's number 1? Who's number 1? Number one was the Seattle Seahawks. And one of the reasons why is because in 2012, they took a kid in the 3rd round named Russell Wilson, who's got 107 points, which nobody else is. And so that draft ended up being 220 points. That's by far.
Yep.
If I look down through this, I'm like, did anybody else even break 60? Travis Kelce was a 59-4. Let me see who the highest on here are. 61 points for Dak Prescott. 65 for David Bakhtiari for
David Bakhtiari.
That guy. Thank you.
Packers, Colorado, University of Colorado offensive tackle. Very good player.
So let me see. He might end up being, since they didn't go far enough back to get Tom Brady.
Russell Wilson would probably be the most valuable player.
Russell
given what
Wilson is probably, because anybody else would have been higher than this on total points if they had hit a 100. That Russell Wilson is considered by this CAVOE formula the best draft pick of the last 10 years.
I mean, it makes sense given he's a running back. I would totally buy that. You might hear an argument as well. I bet you Dak Prescott is not on his heels, but another one that probably has supreme value given he was a 4th-round pick as a quarterback and doing well in the league. Justin Simmons also. This is a quote here from Jeff Legwold, just you talked about putting a bow on it, said that the Broncos 2021 draft class may well turn out to be the team's best of the past decade. Thank you very much, George Payton, for that. We'll see how it plays out. Don't want to get too high too early. Want to think about it 3-5 years down the line. Call it a result of the post-Super Bowl 50 stumbles in the draft. 2016 and 2017 were largely washouts beyond safety, Justin Simmons, who posted a 27.8.
And he was number 1 in that class.
Number 1 in 2016. Yeah, that was a bad class. And Garrett Bowles. Oh, mistake here. He said guard Garrett Bowles. You mean tackle Garrett Bowles, 2017. And Garrett Bowles did not post the most overexpected because he was a 1st-round pick. It's actually Isaiah McKenzie in the 5th because 5th-round pick, obviously. But the 6 players from class from 2021 that played in at least 14 games as rookies, with cornerback Patrick Surtain in 2nd and running back Javonte Williams, already played with Pro Bowl potential. So really good class. We want to stack that class as well. I would not expect that level of draft class again this year because the draft is fluky in general and you're going to regress to the mean some. But you should feel pretty good about George Payton. And if he can stack together another good draft class, we're going to be cooking with grease.
So Ryan Leaf, for those of you that were old enough to remember a lot of you might know who Ryan Leaf is. Nick might know who Ryan Leaf is. I'm sure he does. But what you probably don't know is that there was a legit who do we take first, Ryan Leaf or Peyton Manning, that went on for 6 months. I mean, it was a big question. It was very, very back and forth for a long time. It wasn't just, oh, yeah, we think it's going to be Peyton. At the time, it was very much so Ryan Leaf or Peyton Manning. And it went back and forth. And Ryan Leaf was awesome at Washington State. He didn't get those accolades for not being awesome. He just, I don't know. He was kind of like a John Rocker Northern redneck. He wasn't very likable, but he was, if Brett Favre turned into actually he was a little bit older, but you're looking at the Brett Favre comparisons for Ryan Leaf. It just, one reason or another, went the other direction. The mental makeup was completely different because from a tools standpoint, if you're just going and watching a Senior Bowl or a 7-on-7, Ryan Leaf's got the bigger arm, faster, more mobile, and all those type of things. But that's why we always say that quarterback can be one of the hardest positions to judge because it depends on so many things you can't measure. Whereas everything else in this sport, you can boil down to a lot of analytics. Again, it's not quite that simple, but it's a bigger, faster, stronger league.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a reason that athleticism is drafted earlier, right? Bigger, faster, stronger league. Now, there are some positions where the athletic traits are probably a little bit overvalued, which leads to busts at those positions. Talking mainly safety, linebacker, and center, and maybe even a little bit running back as well. Intelligence and processing, as long as you have the right body type and enough toughness, enough athleticism, you should be okay there. But yeah, no, it will be really interesting. So we're already at 53 minutes here. Did you want to do? I mean, it's the last week. Did you want to do another mock draft simulator quick to get us on out of here?
Especially since I feel like I've gotten the sliders down to make it hard.
Oh God, putting up positions of value all the way, turning down randomness.
I turn that up. I turn down the randomness, and I follow the board.
It's going to be just linebackers and running backs only available for every pick.
So what do you think? What do you think, everybody? We'll go. We'll do one more mock draft, And like I said, I feel like I've gotten it where it's more realistic with the sliders, which means I end up trading more when I run through them. So let me go. I'm going to go public versus PF board. I'm going to go higher on the PFF board. I'm going to turn up the care for positional value. And I'm going to turn down the draft for need to middle. And I'm going to put the randomness at middle. And we're going to choose Broncos. Where are we here? It won't be the last one. Where's
we got one
we'll
Thursday.
Do one more. We'll do one Thursday morning. Come on. We're not getting out of here Thursday morning without doing one. Let me share my screen, share screen. And then I'll zoom. You can see where the sliders are. And I'll zoom. I think 150 is about what's best for us here.
It's making me twitchy thinking about this late.
I got the 7 rounds this time, so let me check that. 7 rounds. And then who are we? Denver Broncos? All right, yeah, let's do this thing. Enter draft.
Let's get it going.
Loading. Should we try to move up to number 1 overall?
You know what? Peyton said that it's not likely, but you never know. Actually, there's that little thing called forced trade. Let's go up there and get Javon Walker.
Yeah, here, I'm going to offer you my 7th round pick.
There you go. 2024 7th. Let's not get crazy.
We got the number 1. Hey, I got Aiden Hutchinson. Check out this mock draft. All right, start draft. Kyle Hamilton went early. I saw Trevon Walker go off in the top 10.
I'm just excited for the best players to be Kingsley Enagbare, Brian Asamoah, and Lord only knows there. It's always the same players.
Abraham Lucas at 49.
All right. Well, right now, that's probably the guy that we're going to lean with. You're scrolling way up there to see who
I wanted to see who won at the top here.
Yep.
So Aiden Hutchinson, Sauce Gardner, Kyle Hamilton, Ike Ekwonu, Trevon Walker, Garrett Wilson, Evan Neal, Charles Cross. No thanks. I'd rather have Derek Stingley. I'd rather have Kayvon Thibodeau or Derek Stingley at 8 than and then Charles number Cross. 9. We'll keep an eye on 9 for sure because that's where it goes there. But here, come on.
Can we see who went
happy right with Abraham Lucas at 64 for goodness sakes?
I would be, but I kind of want to see who went before because I'm really into this conversation of maybe possibly trading up for some players here if they do fall down the board. So maybe get up to like 45 and start scrolling down and be like, this is where I'm starting to work the phones. So unfortunately, there goes Arnold Ebiketie. He's somebody I'd be interested in. Travis Jones as well. It's probably too far to trade up. Maybe trade up for Ebiketie just because of the positional value. You can treat him like a first-round pick for next year.
When I started doing this, you know who I started getting at 43 was David Ajabo.
Yeah.
He falls into that area, and you redshirt him.
Yep.
You know, you give him a redshirt year. Quay Walker, Jalen Petrie.
Kyler Gordon's another one maybe I'm calling on.
Matt Corral. And from going from Ole Miss to the Saints, there's some history there, right? Right, Mr. Manning?
Absolutely. And I'm probably calling here at pick 56 or pick 55 to see if I can get Drake Jackson just because I think there's a drop-off at edge. I think there's tiers. There's where I'm putting them right now, it's the Boye Mafe, Arnold Ebiketie, David Ajabo tier. And then right after that is Josh Pascal and Drake Jackson. And if the board is flying off there and I can't get one of those guys, I'm actually probably a little bit interested in selecting one. Logan Hall going pick 63 right before. That's a really good pick for the Bengals. I love that fit for them. So we're on the board now. I think the guy that we probably will go with is Abraham Lucas. Don't hit draft just yet, though.
Lucas. He's a really good right tackle. Have to.
I think there's an argument, and this is going to be Nick. Are you okay? At 64, I think there's an argument for Chad Muma. I know that the positional value there is not as high, but I think Chad Muma is one of the best coverage linebackers in the entire class. He processes things really well, former safety. I'm a big fan of Chad Muma. If we want to lean, I think it's probably harder to find an offensive tackle later because I like the value of linebacker later. So we can go that way, but I would say that
here is when I take Abraham Lucas this early, I end up like hedging with Matt Waletzko, Braxton Jones, thinking I could have taken those guys later. I like Braxton Jones similarly to Abraham Lucas, not a 40 gap difference, but like a 5 to 10 gap difference.
Yeah, and let's scroll down a little bit too still, just because I'm curious to see how it plays out. There's Dylan Parham still on the board.
Again at 75.
I'm curious about, did Cam Jurgens already come off the board? Has he really changed his value? Because he used to be, you could get him like in the middle of the 4th. I didn't see him there at all. Did he go in the 1st round? Because we turned up positional value.
He's a center, right?
Yeah, I just don't see him. IOL. You got to click IOL. Yep, there you go. Dylan Parham, Donovan. There he
93.
is. Silly. Okay, so I think we should go. Let's just really lean into the Russell Wilson value here. I think that's what we need to do, and let's get Abraham Lucas. I do think there would be a discussion to be had for me about Chad Muma, and I know that's Nick. Are you
sure.
okay?
For sure, but I would take. I like Lucas here again. Like I said, I think you can get developmental tackles later.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been, and Jeremy was in a conversation earlier about Lucas, and I would set the over under at Lucas at 50.
Yeah, and Lucas as well. Maybe it's a little bit of a how do I put it? Overexposure to him. He was one of the best tackles there at the Senior Bowl, despite not being as highly valued as, for the most part, Bernard Raymond. So that's interesting. He has 50 starts in a pass-happy Pac-12. I know he hasn't gone up against a lot of elite edge rushers in the Pac-12. They don't have a lot of dynamic defensive players in that conference right now, but did go up against Kayvon Thibodeau and Drake Jackson and held his own. And I think there's definitely if you can get him here, you should be excited. So we're on the board now with the Broncos at pick 75. Can you scroll back up? And we got D Porter coming in first. Love your show, guys. Can't wait for Thursday. Thank you so much, D Porter. We appreciate you and hope you're having an excellent day. Thank you for joining us. So we are on the board now at pick 75. Scott's moving his mouse around. Going to click out of that. There you go. And who are you thinking here, Scott? Because I saw a name that stuck out to me, but I think also we can kind of maybe cheat the system
it's
here.
Probably time to go. The corner here makes sense. I like Parham.
Cam Jurgens is still available.
You've talked up Zach Tom enough. Marcus Jones scares us because of the shoulder, so I'm going to scratch him. And then
I saw a name. There it is.
And then I like Tariq Woolen.
Yep. I think that Tariq Woolen is a unique enough player here that I might go that way. And there's multiple centers that I still liked. That being said, if we really want to lean into Russell Wilson in the offensive line, I think there's an argument for Cam Jurgens here. I know that's kind of cheating the board, but seriously, there are teams that I've heard that value Cam Jurgens over Tyler Linderbaum. And he's a very dynamic athlete, very good length. And I think he would come and play day one at center. I think Cam Jurgens, if he's on the board at 64, there's going to be a conversation about that from what I've gathered. So
Cam Jurgens again. I like the idea of Sam Williams too. He's here.
Yeah,
he is here. If you have to get rid of him as a 75 again, I think he's the best player still here. Let's go Cam and then see what happens at 96.
Yeah, let's do it. Can get some cornerbacks later. It's kind of cheating the system.
I just saw Tariq Woolens and Sam Williams go.
Oh, there goes Damari Mathis too. That's unfortunate.
Sam Williams went at 86 to the Raiders. Now that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, that is a
Tariq Woolen. Carson Strong to the Falcons at 82. Zach Tom at 80. Max Mitchell. You want him starting for the Chargers. I promise you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's not a good pick for them. So we've gone back-to-back offensive line, and we are really leaning into the offensive line.
And that's the thing about doing that early is I think there's guys down here we like. We can get a running back here. I know that's a fan favorite there with James Cook.
I don't think that's very good value. I think the next one that sticks out here for me is probably Jelani Woods. Let's scroll down a little bit just because I'm curious if there's a
I like Braxton Jones, but I'd be willing to gamble that he's there at 115, 116.
I kind of want to pass on him.
Two offensive linemen. See, that's the reason I don't necessarily. You could talk me out of taking one of those guys early. It's because I really like Braxton Jones.
I do too. There's a guy that I want to highlight later that I want to maybe get. So I think the guy to go with here is Jelani Woods, just because his skill set is unique. There's nobody else in this class that has his ability, and maybe at 115, 116, we can have a different conversation. But those are the guys that stick out to me right now. So we're on the board again here with the Denver Broncos.
Braxton Jones just went.
There he is.
105 to the Niners.
Good pick for them. Also Rasheed Walker. That's okay, because I was looking at somebody else later that I wanted to highlight. We're on the board again here. Somebody that sticks out for me at this pick is we skipped over him last time, but I just kind of want to highlight him. Tyson Anderson, safety from Toledo.
That's who was the guy. I ended up drafting in the 7th, the guy from Miami of Ohio. I'm like, Nick was talking about one of these guys. Who was it? It was Tyson Anderson.
Yes, Tyson Anderson, freak athlete, still kind of doesn't know what he's doing as far as processing and coverage, but I think he had 33-inch arm length, tested out the wazoo, and has played 50 games at Toledo. And I think I was listening to, I think it was Ben Fennell talk about it, and he said that Tyson Anderson has logged 70 more special team snaps than any other player has in the last decade. And talking about the core 4 special teams. So I'm really interested in Tyson Anderson, getting him to be a box kind of dime backer, and he is going to be a special teams monster for you early on. So I really like Tyson Anderson. He's a guy to like the Broncos country. This name might not mean anything to you, Scott, but Broncos country had a love affair with a special teams ace safety who never really did much more than special teams ace, but was one of the best gunners in football during his career, and David Bruton from Notre Dame. And I think Tyson Anderson, valedictorian, extremely intelligent, from Toledo, actually, not just school there. He'd be a really good pick there. Freak athlete. I love Tyson Anderson.
All right, it's my turn, and I'm going to give you 3 players.
Okay.
Edge, Majai Sanders.
Okay.
He's raw, here. And he was ill in February. So he came into the combine at 228 and measured his pro day back at 248.
Yeah.
So I don't think you've seen what he can be.
Yeah.
So again, getting him mid round 4 with your second pick in the 4 would be decent value for me. If you're looking at running back, I really like Rachaad White.
You scrolled past who I'd go with already.
And then I like let's go as a developmental guy.
We talked about him earlier, and we haven't gone cornerback yet.
Joshua Williams.
Very, very good value here.
They kill you for this pick.
I don't care. They don't have him on their board as ADP.
It's like they haven't.
This is a missed data point.
I'll pick that guy. And
well, you know why they kill you is because they don't have his ADP logged
because he's not ranked yet correctly. Yep. And there's let's go as a developmental guy.
There's
Tyler. I don't mind going running back there with Tyler Algier.
I think Algier is the pick here. I absolutely adore Tyler Algier. And there's an offensive tackle that is very lowly rated here that I'm going to say let's go scroll down and take him at the next pick because we haven't talked about him much on here, and I really actually like him. And I haven't seen his name yet. Still haven't seen it. Awesome. All right, we're on the board now. Can you go to the offensive tackles?
OT?
Yep. Can you scroll down? There he is. 231. Daryl Rosenthal. We could probably wait and get him later. Daryl Rosenthal is a player he tested. He has a 33.5 arm length, which meets the threshold. He measured at the combine only about 295, but he's a transfer from LSU. And this guy is a freak, an absolute awesome athlete. Watching him on tape, he is moving in space like a tight end. He seeks and destroys. He's one of my favorite late guys right now that I just recently got around to his tape and was like, what are we doing here? Why are we not talking about Daryl Rosenthal? He is a fantastic player, and I would be over the moon to nab him for the Broncos. So
I'm taking the punter.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
And then you can go with
Thomas. We already got Tyson Anderson. We've been kind of switching it up here with just in general with this draft class. I have a name for you here that we haven't done yet that there's a connection here for the Broncos. One of the Broncos coaches recruited this guy to play for his college. Caleb Ellaby, quarterback in the 7th round. This is just a dart throw, but it's keeping the position young. Josh Johnson is only here for 1 year, and it's probably pushing Brett Rippon off the roster. But Caleb Ellaby, I think he can run a very similar scheme to Russell Wilson.
He's going to be a coach.
Ellaby? I'm talking to Ellaby, not Rippon.
Yeah, I'm talking Ellaby. Ellaby's going to be a coach in 3 years.
You think so? I think he's got enough arm talent where he can kick around the league.
Who am I mixing up with that was at the Senior Bowl that threw for 7,000 yards?
Bailey Zapp.
Okay, that's who I was thinking. He doesn't have enough arm. He reminds me of he reminds me of Kellen Moore.
Yeah,
I was thinking of Bailey Zapp. Thank you.
Yep.
I told you we were going to get killed on this.
Yeah, that's because they don't have him ranked. That's fine. Gave us a C. We what we did here.
See what happens when I let Nick drive.
We take advantage of the board and the deficiencies overall.
Well, this is what I say. I like saving these and then going back and say, okay, this is where we got them. Where did they actually go?
Yeah. I think you probably were right at about value for a lot of these picks. But again, I really wanted to highlight some guys that we haven't really highlighted yet as well, because that's a lot of fun of these mock draft processes. How does this make sense? Why do these guys make sense in this range? So Abraham Lucas, you got a starting tackle there. He can start right tackle day one. Really good pass protector, can do some work as a run blocker. He's you are really feeling pretty good about your right tackle position now for next season. Love Cam Jurgens. He's going to beat out Lloyd Cushenberry, probably one of the best centers in this class. He might not even be there at 64, to be completely honest. Jelani Woods.
You know what I want to do, Nick, is let's do our score, and we'll take these numbers and we'll add their draft pick here where they went, and then we'll add them up down at the bottom, and it's going to be a big number.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big number because this number is going to be about 50, 52. This number could be in the 30s.
Yep.
This one could be in the 60s.
Yep.
And it's going to be a big number down here at the end.
Yep. Yeah, this is just taking advantage of the Pro Football Focus deficiencies, especially Cam Jurgens. That one is kind of silly. But guess what? We really, really leaned into the offensive line. We got 2 starters on the offensive line here. You know who should be happy about that? Russell Wilson. Really investing in the offensive line, making it better for him, especially for a team.
You upgraded 2 spots on the OL in a draft where you picked at 64. That's a pretty good draft.
And you took guess what, Garrett Bowles? I hope you feel a little bit of pressure because Darren Rosenthal, his tools really actually could push. Either you got a swing tackle that can take over Calvin Anderson there as kind of your both side swing tackle who's only here on a 1-year deal, or Darren Rosenthal with his athleticism. I'm really telling you, he could end up being a starting tackle and put some pressure on Garrett Bowles.
Playing a lot of snaps on that group? Jelani Woods.
And Jelani Woods, yep.
Jelani Woods is playing a lot of snaps on there. So you're getting 3 big-time contributors on the offensive side of the ball. Yep. It's a little scary. You know, I don't think you necessarily – you don't want 2 rookies coming in right away and playing. But they're your best guys or your best guys.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And Darren Rosenthal, keep an eye out for him. I do like his ability, especially in the outside zone scheme. Was a very highly rated recruit that went to LSU, transferred to Kentucky, but his movement skills are very good. I think he'll probably end up going round 4. And what do we get him? Round 6? I think that's a great deal. And yeah, love the double dipping at offensive tackle. Me too. You really protect yourself there. Get yourself. We talked about at the top of the show. The Broncos need to find cost-controlled players at positions of value to help negate the cap hit that is coming for Russell Wilson, and did that there. And also DWI guys. Yeah. Okay. You can go ahead and take this one, Scott. I'm going to take a coffee sip.
On Thursday, choose Muma in a mock. You can do it, Nick. You know who drives the thing? I'm the one that clicks the button. And Friday, Peyton take him at 64. Ethan coming in, the closer. I guess it means it's time to get out of here. And real quick, wanted to also say thank you again to Jacob Foster, who came back in with some more support. The silent one. You're allowed to talk. Just because I call you the silent one doesn't mean it has to be. You can change it up. You can earn a new nickname. We appreciate your comments on there. And Ethan, thank you so much. It's you've made draft season for us, without a doubt. You and some other folks for sure. But coming in red, it's like I see red. And Muma at 64, again, Nick almost did it this time. I talked him out of it on this one. I would rather have Abraham Lucas than Chad Muma. I would. Yeah,
I really like Muma. Anderson's a topic of conversation there too. I have Muma slightly higher. I think if Anderson didn't have the shoulder red flags, I might actually take Anderson there. Again, more information on Anderson. You know who the last linebacker that tested as athletically as Anderson was, Scott? This is a guy who, I guess I'll just lead this with you. This guy, his time in the NFL,
I don't know.
It's his time in the league ended tragically.
David Pollock. I don't know.
That's a good one. No, but Ryan Shazier, freak athlete. I mean,
broken neck. Yep,
broken neck, but absolute freak athlete. Doesn't always play at the linebacker position if they don't have the head, but sounds like Trey Anderson's somebody to bet on. So I'm feeling a little better. The more
I just, you talk about, the instincts and stuff like that. I'm like, my God, this guy was MVP on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
What can't he learn? I mean, he's got it. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
He's got it. And again, when they played side by side at the Senior Bowl, it wasn't close. It was not close. Troy Anderson was faster to the ball every single snap.
Yep.
So that's my guy.
Yep, for sure. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. We'll be back again live on Scott's channel tomorrow.
Troy Anderson went 57 in this draft, so he went ahead of where we have Muma. So he was already gone. And Christian Watson, my guy, Christian Watson fell all the way to 59. That ain't happening.
No, probably not with this draft. The wide receivers are going off the board early. We'll have to have a post-draft conversation about how different ways you get to value, because there's scarcity value, which is your offensive tackles, and there is impact value, which is your wide receivers. There's a lot of wide receivers coming out every year, but you need them. You want 3 or 4 of them. So even though there's a lot, they're still going to go early and they're still going to get paid. Offensive tackles, singular offensive tackle is not going to have the most impact on the game if they're good, but bad ones will have an impact on the game in the wrong way. And there's not many guys who can do what the offensive tackles need to do. So definitely a down the line conversation. We appreciate you guys. Thank you, Ethan, again for coming in to close us out. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Trevor Sandel coming in saying, don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. And Scott, no nickname.
I'm not Chris Berman. I don't give everybody a nickname.
Rumbling, stumbling, bumbling. No, okay. Jake the Snake. That's always loved. I had the ESPN video
Jake
game
the
with
Snake
Teal.
Was my favorite too. But the DDT was awesome. I loved it. It was my favorite finishing move.
Rich Cannon Gannon, always good. I had that 2006 ESPN football, 2K5.
We're talking 2 different Jake the Snakes. Jake the Snake Roberts was the Jake the Snake.
Jake the Snake Plummer.
His finishing move was the DDT. He was well before Jake Plummer.
God, Jake Plummer till I die. I still rock the Jake Plummer jersey. That's my dude. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy, and I am at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at Huddle Up Pod, as well as at Mile High Huddle, and also BFB_pod, at BFB_pod. Make sure you are joining us at Facebook at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And obviously, not everybody's in a position to contribute to the show financially, super chat, superstars. If you are, we appreciate the heck out of you getting yourself a chance to win a jersey. It might be fun to get one of those rookies here printed on one of those jerseys. But number one thing you can do, please find us on Mile High Huddle, subscribe to the show, like this show specifically, and share it on your social media because the draft is coming in. I'd like to think nobody covers the draft as holistically, expansively, intimately, add superlatives here as we do at Mile High Huddle. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. Scott, any thoughts before we get on out of here?
I mean, now we're talking wrestling, so that becomes, and I can always go with EJ here, but we have time. Their next match, Chelsea's next match, is on Thursday. But yeah, just some programming notes tonight. Building the Broncos at 8:00 Eastern, 6:00 Mountain, and that brings us back to Wednesday morning on my channel. We'll talk a little bit more at the top of the draft, in the top 10 and things that can happen. Thursday morning, we will be back for Broncos for breakfast. And then Thursday night, Nick and I will host with Eric, and we'll bring in guests all night for the live draft, during the draft. Friday morning, back on my channel to discuss the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, we appreciate you. We're going to get on out of here. Like I said, we're going to be on Scott's channel tomorrow. We got Bird Gang coming in. What's up, guys? I was on his channel when the Broncos played the Eagles. Really excited for your Eagles going forward. One of the more fun teams to watch in the draft, given how Howie Roseman plays around in the draft, moves around and values things. One of the more analytically driven front offices. So shout out to the Eagles. They better go back to those Kelly Greens. Those are gorgeous. But we appreciate you guys all joining us today. Everyone have a good one. Have a great Tuesday. Like Scott said, I'll see you guys tonight on Building the Broncos with Carl, and we'll see you on Scott's channel tomorrow. Everyone choose kindness and choose compassion. Go Broncos.